Now, with all that being said, the day that the Khalid Saeed page really increased in number was the day that Wa'il Ghunaim was released from jail. He was imprisoned for 12 days, and during that period there was significant tumult on the Khalid Saeed page. A lot of people had come on, and actually there were posts made to the page when the internet was brought down in Egypt. So it became evident that someone administering the page was not situated inside the country. And that compelled people to believe the government narrative that, maybe this was orchestrated by, external forces, that maybe there are foreign hands, what the Egyptian government loves to call foreign, or had loved to call foreign hands. So in this case, you started seeing, of course, the pro-Mubarak cyber activists or cyber thugs, if you will. Some of them had created pages literally overnight, so it wasn't clear exactly which agency within government is largely responsible for that. But all of a sudden there was a spike in the number of members on the page whose sole purpose was to try and argue rhetorically with the cyber activists on this page. So they came out and said, this is administered by foreigners, that this needs to come down, and many of them created parallel pages to try and draw attention. And given the fact that the administrator was actually absent, and there was an obvious difference in approach between those who were managing the page, during that period, and the original administrator, there were even among the followers of the page, they felt as though that there was something wrong, that this wasn't natural, and that may have hurt these cyber activists and their resolve, but nevertheless, it was still happening on the streets. The revolution was in full force. But then Wa'il Ghunaim was released from prison, and he appeared on Dream TV, where he spoke for about an hour and a half and ended up being an incredibly emotional broadcast. And he was crying on air as the host was showing photographs of those who had been killed during the protest, something that Wa'il did not experience and had not seen firsthand. And as soon as that happened, the page's followers increased by 250,000 members in a single night. So, the power of TV to catapult a page, and of course, dismissed all the arguments by Mubarak cyber thugs and anyone who came out and was a detractor against the cyber activists. All of that became dispelled. But again, so you've got television and cyber media working in concert in some respects. But what happens when you have a circumstance where you're not really sure if there's agreement between the online realm and the offline realm? The Egyptian constitutional amendments, constitutional amendment referendum that was voted on March 19th is a living example of that. If you were following the online activists of any stripe, with the exception of the Muslim Brotherhood, you would think that the constitutional amendments were going to fail. I mean, it would look like a sweeping majority. Everybody online said that they were not going to vote for the constitutional amendments. Now, this was a referendum that was the support for the amendments was endorsed by the Muslim Brotherhood, but no other major political force came out in favor of the amendments. So basically, it appeared as though it was the revolution against the NDP and the Muslim Brotherhood, or the cyber activists against everyone else. And the cyber activists won, or again, it's an easy sort of description, dichotomy, but nevertheless, with all of the cyber activism in support of bringing down this constitutional amendment referendum, 22% of those who voted against it. And so it was a sweeping majority in favor of the amendment. And of course, this led to sort of an open discussion about how powerful is cyber media. To what extent do the people online represent a very, very slim minority of the general populace in Egypt? And what does that mean? Is there a possibility that all of this might be cyber groupthink? That people who are online, I mean, it's sort of like a group of individuals who happen to be meeting on sort of in a parallel sphere, having open discussions about things that they agree on. And of course, the groups are very self-selecting, but there is a dimension that is completely missed on. Courtney has done a significant amount of research on the Muslim Brotherhood's online networks, which she didn't have an opportunity to share, but hopefully in the discussion we can point out some of these questions. But the Muslim Brotherhood are a major force to be reckoned with in the cyber power realm as well, but they were entirely dismissed and forgotten, or perhaps even omitted from the discourse of the revolution and cyber activism in Egypt. But now, of course, there is every reason to pay attention to them. So I also want to point out that with the convergence of the technology, you see things that you see sort of phenomena that are incredibly interesting, such as the emergence of online social networking news services that basically collate and consolidate information from various sources and distribute them online. One of those networks is an online page called Rust, RNN. And it literally started the first day of the Egyptian Revolution on January 25th. And they offered reporting on the ground. I mean, they basically collected information from various sources. They would resort to content that was coming in from the news wires, reports from the ground. They had numbers that people could call and report information. They were following Twitter feeds on a regular basis, and basically they became some people's immediate sort of access to information from the Egyptian Revolution. Because of the success of Rust or RNN, now you have a Libyan equivalent called Barq, BRQ, which translates to lightning in Arabic, and then another incredibly popular one for Syria called SNN. And so these are really interesting ways whereby not only are cyber activists able to follow up on information that is happening on the ground, but it's also offers a unique opportunity for international media organizations that are incapable of having access to reports on the ground to be able to follow the information. Again, the problem becomes verification and accuracy and things of that sort. Al Jazeera, which some people like to credit for fomenting revolution. I think that might be a slight exaggeration, but nevertheless, they happen to be in the right place at the right time in most instances. And given their emphasis on telling the story from the other side of power, they find themselves, in many instances, supporting the voice of the majority. But of course, there are failures for Al Jazeera. I mean, or at least certain stories have not been told. The Bahrain story is a major blunder for Al Jazeera thus far, as has been the Syrian story. But I think the Syrian story is largely because of the phenomenon that I'm trying to describe, which is the inability to access reports from the ground. So instead, what they're turning to are videos that cannot be verified from individuals who happen to be at the protests at Dira or in Homs or in Damascus or various cities in Syria. So in many instances, these online news services like RNN, Barq, and SNN become a very valuable resource for networks like Al Jazeera and Al Arabiya, CNN, and various other networks that feel there's no way that they can personally verify through their stringers and freelancers, but rather will follow these services and see if there is if there is a way to corroborate by looking at by identifying the frequency of a single story's appearance and whether or not it's real.